serve on the National Security Subcommittee for the Financial Services Committee, so I really want to stay in the national security lane, if I may. So when we think about traditional adversaries and both us towards them and them towards us, we probe their capabilities. We look for weaknesses, and we collect that data, that reconnaissance for in the event we need it in the future. For each of you, yes or no question, based off of your own experience or the data that you've been privy to, is there any indication that these UAPs could be essentially collecting reconnaissance information? Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Grush?
Fair assessment, yeah.
Mr. Fravor?
Very possible.
Again, in the national security vein, is it possible that these UAPs would be probing our capabilities? Yes or no, Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Grush?
Yes,
Fravor?
definitely.
Is it possible that these UAPs are testing for vulnerabilities in our current systems?
Yes.
Yes, possible.
Do you feel, based off of your experience and the information that you've been privy to, that these UAPs provide an existential threat to the national security of the United States? Mr. Graves?
Potentially.
Yes, sir, potentially.
Same answer, potentially. Yeah, I'd say definitely, potentially.
Mr. Graves and Fravor, in the event that your encounters had become hostile, would you have had the capability to defend yourself, your crew, your aircraft?
Absolutely not.
Sir?
No.
Is based off of the information that you've been privy to, is there any indication that these UAPs are interested in our nuclear technology and capabilities?
Yes.
By external observation, sure, that could be a fair assessment, yeah. Yes.
Is there any indication that the Department of Energy is involved in UAP data collection and housing?
I don't have an answer.
I can't confirm or deny that in a public setting.
And
No.
could you do it in a secure setting?
Yes.
Mr. Fravor?
No, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm the last member to go, but there clearly is a threat to the national security of the United States of America. As members of Congress, we have a responsibility to maintain oversight and be aware of these activities so that, if appropriate, we take action. I would encourage the chairman to demand that we have any and all, but in particular Mr. Grush, talk to us in a skiff. And if that access is denied, I will personally volunteer to initiate the Holman Rule against any personnel or any program or any agency that denies access to Congress. Mr. Chairman, with that, I will yield the remainder of my time to my fellow colleague from Tennessee, Mr. Burchett.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting and perhaps frustrating thing is, so you have SAPs or special access projects, right? And so everything's very compartmentalized, and that's for good reason, national security purposes, for whatever. But the problem is that makes getting information like this hard to gather, because you've got to look under the right rock and ask the right question. And so you could be looking under the right rock for information. There could be information there, but if you're not asking the right question, they're not necessarily going to divulge it. So it requires a very methodical, consistent, persistent, doggish, bulldogish, if you will, kind of determination to get the truth. You're borrowing from the X-Files. The truth is out there. We just got to figure out where to look and how to get it. Kind of on a very personal level, my hope would be is that it's some new technology that we possess, and because that puts us that next generation above our adversaries. And so again, you've seen these leaps in technology over the years, and one of the main reasons why the United States of America is the dominant predator on the battlefield is our ability to communicate across distances and complicated areas, but also our air superiority. And so to have that next level technology that maintains that superiority would be obviously crucial as we go forward, as China becomes more and more of an emerging threat. That being said, these UAPs seem to defy physics. They seem to have some sort of propulsion technology that's unknown to man as we understand it. So what does that do to the energy sector? If there's a new, think about the amount of energy it takes to take a craft that's hovering and suddenly it's going Mach 1 in a matter of seconds. One, the human body can't sustain that as we understand it, right? So the craft would have to have next level technology to protect tissue, if you will, or it's an unmanned type of craft. So again, there's just a lot of questions that have to be probed. But again, if there is this propulsion technology out there and this energy capability out there, not only are we in a renaissance when it comes to aircraft, but we're in a renaissance in terms of propulsion and energy production and consumption. So again, huge implications across the economic scale, both domestically and internationally. Right, and so for me, in my perspective, is national security. So we do know that we have these UAPs operating in the commercial light area zones. So that would be, let me back up a step. So if you have experimental aircraft that maybe it's a joint venture between a branch of the military and some private corporation, they have testing areas. There's protocols that they would follow to keep the information secret, but also for the safety of the general public. What we're seeing is these UAPs operating in areas of military traffic, around military bases and nuclear facilities, but also in commercial lanes of traffic. So, let's assume for a moment, hypothetically, that it is some sort of joint venture, right? So why are these craft operating outside of their area, their test areas? Why would they be in those specific, again, commercial or military flight zones? And what's the risk to the public? Where's the oversight? Where's the accountability? And then if perhaps it's not a joint venture, then who is it? What is it? Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it a joint venture between the two? That would be unlikely. But again, when you're asking these questions, I think you got to be careful not to come to a predetermined conclusion and then try to prove your conclusion, right? You go into it eyes wide open. You ask all the probative questions, even the questions that may seem ridiculous, right? And then you disprove or prove that hypothesis. And so that's my approach to it. I'm not going to assume I know what it may or may not be. What I do know is there's a national security issue here, and it needs to be determined, is it a national security threat as we move forward?